ज्ञानञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यामनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मायं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुन् श्रीयुतापदकमलम्
श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवंश्च
श्रीरूपं
साग्रजातं
सहगनाथितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं स्वागतं परिजनासायितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं
कृष्णपादं
सहगनाललिता हे कृष्णा करुणा दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपीश गोपिका राधाकान्ता नमोऽस्तुते सप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी
सुते
नमामि हरिप्रिये कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद
तारा श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे
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 राम
राम राम हरे हरे
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Ashwin, for the wonderful Mangalacharan recital. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. Prabhuji, please accept our humble obeisances from everybody in this group who have joined and who are about to join, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, we are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam now, and we are on Canto 1, and we are on Chapter 1, which is the question of the sages. And today, Prabhuji, we are on text 10.
Okay.
So, Prabhuji, shall we hand over to you, or would you like us to read the Sanskrit translation and purport?
So I was thinking actually, so I can read the verse and the translation, and then maybe together, like maybe we can read the purport in turn, so paragraph by paragraph.
Yes, Prabhuji, as you direct. So I hand over to you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jeva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudiraye Nastapraye Vyabresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavatir Nishtaki. Hare Krishna, everyone. So grateful to be with you here today to discuss Srimad Bhagavatam. As Kritika Mataji's said, we're reading from text 10, first chapter of the first canto. Prayayeno paisho sabya kalavasmin yuge janaha manda samanda mateo manda bhagya hi abhadrataha O learned one, in this iron age of Gully, men have but short lives. They are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. So I thought we could read it's not such a long purport. Maybe we could have one person each read a paragraph of each purport. Kirtika Mataji, would you like to read the first paragraph?
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji, I will. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Jai.
The devotees of the Lord are always anxious for the spiritual improvement of the general public. When the sages of Naimisharanya analyze the state of affairs of the people in the age of Kali, they foresaw that men would live short lives. In Kali Yuga, the duration of life is shortened, not so much because of insufficient food, but because of irregular habits. By keeping regular habits and eating simple food, any man can maintain his health. Overeating, over sense gratification, over dependence on another's mercy, and artificial standards of living sap the very vitality of human energy. Therefore, the duration of life is shortened. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Would anyone else like to read? Got any hands up? Otherwise, I can read the next one to keep the flow. The people of this age are also very lazy, not only materially, but in the matter of self-realization. The human life is meant for self-realization. That is to say, man should come to know what he is, what the world is, and what the supreme truth is. Human life is a means by which the living entity can end all the miseries of the hard struggle for life in material existence, and by which he can return to Godhead, his eternal home. But due to a bad system of education, men have no desire for self-realization. Even if they come to know about it, they unfortunately become victims of misguided teachers. Got on the call.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, would you like to read the next paragraph?
Okay.
Thank you, Peter Prabhuji.
In this age, men are victims not only of different political creeds and parties, but also of many different types of sense gratificatory diversions, such as cinemas, sports, gambling, clubs, mundane libraries, bad association, smoking, drinking, cheating, pilfering, bickerings, and so on. Their minds are always disturbed and full of anxieties due to so many different engagements. In this age, many unscrupulous men manufacture their own religious faiths, which are not based on any revealed scriptures. And very often, people who are addicted to sense gratification are attracted by such institutions. Consequently, in the name of religion, so many sinful acts are being carried on that the people in general have neither peace of mind nor health of body. The student brahmachari communities are no longer being maintained, and householders do not observe the rules and regulations of the Grihastha ashram. Consequently, the so-called vanaprasthas and sannyasis who come out of such Grihastha ashrams are easily deviated from the rigid path. In the Kali Yuga, the whole atmosphere is surcharged with recklessness. Men are no longer interested in spiritual values. Material sense gratification is now the standard of civilization. For the maintenance of such material civilizations, man has formed complex nations and communities, and there's a constant strain of hot and cold wars between these different groups. It has become very difficult, therefore, to raise a spiritual standard due to the present distorted values of human society. The sages of Naimisaranya are anxious to disentangle the fallen souls and here they are seeking the remedy from Srila Sutta Goswami.
Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So yeah, here we can say, as wonderfully read by Peter Babaji, at the very last line of the purport, one of the key things of the sages of Namaskaramaya can see that the world is falling into chaos. And the thing about sages is that their prime motivation in life is to help. That is the others. That is one of the hallmarks of a Vaishnava, that he or she is very compassionate, very, very compassionate, and they want to elevate the world and help the world and help their consciousness. So within this beautiful verse and purport, Srila Prabhupada has identified the qualities of people in Kali Yuga. So what I wanted to do was just identify, put a magnifying glass on these qualities, which are actually 5 in this verse, and then maybe talk about a little bit about, because we are unfortunately, or fortunately, as we can see, I feel very fortunate to be with all of you discussing Bhagavatam. But yes, so we are all in Kali Yuga. So to a lesser or more degree, we all have suffer from these qualities. You know, I can definitely speak for myself that. So I wanted to explore these qualities, see what they are, and then see how perhaps we can overcome these qualities, even though we're in Kali Yuga. So the first quality that is mentioned here, in this iron age of Kali, men have but short lives. What does this mean? It means that we have less lifespan. So believe it or not, so there's 4 yugas. So in the material concept of thinking, time is linear, but actually the Vedas explain that time is actually cyclic. So we just simply, time just goes through different ages, from Satyug, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, to our current Yuga, which is Kali Yuga. So it goes through, and then once Kali Yuga finishes, it will reach Satyug again. And one of the symptoms of people in Kali Yuga, as mentioned, is we have short lives. So we only tend to live around 100 years. It's explained that in Dwapar Yuga, people would live much longer. In Treta Yuga, even longer. In Satyug, several thousand years. Although it may be hard for us to comprehend this. So why though? Why is it that we have such short lives in Kali Yuga? You know, so Srila Prabhupada wonderfully explained in the purport, and this is a good tip for general health as well. So here we can see, in Kali Yuga, the duration of life is shortened, not so much because of insufficient food, but because of irregular habits. By keeping regular habits and eating simple food, any man can maintain his health. So we can see here, Srila Prabhupada explains that in Kali Yuga, a tendency of people is to take too much, eat too much, just endeavor too much for sense gratification. I thought a nice example of this is I was listening to a talk the other day, and the USA only forms, so the United States of America only forms about 4% of the total world's population. But the USA uses 25% of the entire world's resources. So they're only 4% of the entire population of the world, but they take 25%. So you can see this is kind of the modern way of thinking. The United States is considered a developed country, yet it uses so much resource unnecessarily. And as we can see, the United States actually has one of the highest obesity rates in the whole of the world. So this is a symptom of Kali Yuga, that people will want to consume too much. And then we can talk about perhaps how this can seep into our own lives and how we can regulate this and use that, learn from this and see how we can advance our position. So the next point is the people of this age are also very lazy. Now you could say, well, I'm not sure about that. You know, I've talked in previous, classes, even before I came to Krishna consciousness. I used to work very hard. I'm sure those of you who are working, you work very long hours. So that's not lazy, is it? So you may question, oh, are we really lazy? You know, but then we have a tendency to be materially lazy at times. We may sleep too much, things like that. But Srila Prabhupada says here, explains it nicely. The people of this age are also very lazy, not only materially, but in the matter of self-realization. So what does this mean? It means, so there's two concepts in Sanskrit, prayas and shreyas. So prayas means immediate kind of gratification, and shreyas means long-term. So I'd like to, I watched an interesting video once of a scientific experiment, if you will. And in this experiment, they took a number of different children. And I don't know if you all like sweets. I quite like sweets. I've got a bit of a sweet tooth. So with all the children, what they did is they brought them one by one individually into a room. And in that room, they had, they put in front of them a marshmallow, so a nice sweet. But they said to the child, they said, you can have this marshmallow now, or if you wait, then you can have 2 marshmallows afterwards. So like this, lots of children came in and out. Some of the children, they took the marshmallow straight away. They didn't want to wait, and they just grabbed it, put it straight in their mouth. It's quite funny. But some of the children, they were smart, and they thought, if I just wait just for 5 minutes, I'll get 2 marshmallows instead. So a small number of children, they waited, and they got 2 marshmallows instead. So they were given 2 sweets instead, whereas the ones who took one straight away didn't. So why do I bring this experiment up? It's because this is the difference between prayas and shreyas. So in Kali Yuga, people are looking for immediate sense gratification, immediate, oh, what can I get right now? How can I achieve? I want the most enjoyment right now. But the problem is they're not really thinking about the ultimate goal. So how can I get the ultimate happiness? And as we've discussed, and Srila Prabhupada wonderfully explains here in this purport as well, that people aren't really thinking about the ultimate goal, the ultimate purpose of life. So we've discussed, as we were discussing Bhagavad Gita, 3 concepts. And we discussed this during the summary. Does anyone remember what the 3 main topics are of the Bhagavad Gita? So it's mentioned here in the purport as well, but not the Sanskrit terms. But Srila Prabhupada beautifully explains it, says human life is the means by which, man should come to know what he is, what the world is, and what the supreme truth is. So the terms that we used are sambandha, abhideya, and prayojana. So what is our sambandha? What is our relationship with God? Abhideya, what are our activities? What should we be doing? And prayojana, what is the ultimate goal of life? So again, this is how people in Kali Yuga, a very, very small minority. So I just want to say to every single one of you on this call here, you're all very, very special, very special. And I'm just want to express my gratitude to you all for listening to me here today, because you're all, each and every single one of you is a very special person. In Kali Yuga, the majority of people do not want to think about what is the ultimate purpose of life and how to get everlasting happiness. Instead, they'd rather get quick happiness, quick. I need on our phones, order food straight away, quick. Less people want to cook these days. People want everything right now at a click of a button. And they're not really we're so conditioned to have things right now rather than stop, think, okay, it's going to be difficult, but how can we get the utmost happiness, the utmost satisfaction? We don't want to settle for the quick win. We want to settle for, there's a saying that if it comes easy, it won't last. But if it lasts, it won't come easy. And such is the path of self-realization, which every single person on this call is on. So just my utmost gratitude to you all for endeavoring on this path. The third point is, so we've said people live less lifespan. In this age, it says people are lazy, especially spiritually lazy, because that's difficult. Spiritual path is not easy. And the third thing is they're misguided. So what does this mean, misguided? So Srila Prabhupada talks about how the education in Kali Yuga is very poor. So we could say, well, you know, in so many ways, we're advanced. You know, we're speaking via the internet, via Zoom, so much good technology. We're, you know, so many material advancements, skyscraper buildings, things like this. But ultimately, and I thought this was a really, really good point, is that, did you know that people in this age, their illness rate is actually higher than at any point in history, especially mental illness as well. And I'll talk about this a bit later. So we can see that people here, they've got so many more advancements through all this so-called education, but yet people are much less happy. So the happiness level is actually going down. And this education that I'm talking about, so many times people will concoct scientific theories and give it as fact. So Darwin's theory of evolution, or perhaps the theory of the universe. And these are all theories which people have concocted and are constantly changing. Yet people in Kali Yuga, because it comes from a so-called scientist, they take this as fact. And yet when it comes to scripture and the power of human experience, which is actually real science, the power of human experience, then people will dismiss it and say, oh no, this is just make-believe, this is just fairy stories. And even more so, even with regards to the teachings of God, even within the teachings of God, these are misguided. So I remember growing up, and I remember, as we spoke about the other week, that growing up as in school when I was very young, I was very confused. And I was asked as I mentioned the other week, I was asked by my religious education teacher, and someone, a Muslim boy in my class, why are there so many gods? Why do you have so many gods? It's a bit silly, isn't it? And I couldn't say anything. And actually, if you read the Western view of our philosophy of the Vedas, they will often say that there are many gods in Hinduism, and there's three main gods. It's the Trimurti, and they're all equal, and so forth. But this is obviously very misguided, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about this hopefully shortly, because we need to get it from the proper source. And unfortunately, as we've talked about many times through the discussion of the Bhagavad Gita, from an authorized source. But instead, now people will listen to anyone who merely has it said in Kali Yuga, the teachers will be unqualified, and people will just respect people who are a good speaker, but who have no material qualification, like this. So we've said less lifespan, people are lazy, they're misguided. Now the fourth one, what is this? People are, it says here in the translation, unlucky. So we're unfortunate also. So to top it all off, we have bad luck in Kali Yuga. So many bad things will happen. And as we can see here, so many calamities throughout the world. 2.7, this goes back also to the first point of over utilizing resources. 2.7 billion people in the world are starving. 2.7 billion are struggling to even have enough food in the world. So one, this is very unfortunate, but it also shows that how can we be living in an advanced society when so many people are struggling in the world to even meet basic needs? How is this an advanced society? And I know on my journey, it made me question, this is one of the things which brought me to Krishna consciousness, is I thought, something doesn't feel right here. You know, that like so many people are enjoying and living high lives and spending so much money, yet on the other side, in many places in the world, and even in the UK, many people are suffering. And how is that? How is that an advanced society if so many people are suffering? Even here in the UK and in London, I would see so many homeless people. So yeah, another symptom of Kali Yuga is that people are unlucky. But again, we can discuss this and see that actually, perhaps we're also lucky too. And finally, the fifth point, above all, always disturbed. So again, I talked about this, that I work myself. I'm studying to be a counselor. That I work in IT. I've been studying for many years psychotherapy. And currently, the latest statistics say that at least 305 million people in the world suffer from depression. At least. And that compared to just 1990, the number was only about half that. So we can see in the space of a very relatively short space of time, maybe like 20 years to 30 years, already a huge increase in disturbance. And this is one of the symptoms of Kali Yuga, is that people are very disturbed within the mind, always disturbed, it says here. So always an anxiety. Now, what are the reasons for this? Well, I was listening to a lecture by Srila Prabhupada the other day, and I know we've discussed the modes of material nature in our discussion of the Bhagavad Gita, and very prominent in Kali Yuga is Rajagun, and the tendency of Rajagun is hankering. What does this word mean, hankering? It means we always want something, and this is what disturbs our mind, because we're always wanting more and more. And as I discussed in the summary of the Bhagavad Gita, we always want a little bit more. I can see this within myself. You always just want just a little bit more, just a slightly bigger house, just a bigger salary, just. And this is a tendency of Kali Yuga, that we always want a little bit more. So we've discussed the qualities of people in Kali Yuga: less lifespan, being lazy spiritually, being misguided, being unfortunate, and always disturbed in the mind. And we can see this happening. So what can we do about it? We're living in Kali Yuga, and some of these may apply to us to a lesser or more degree. So first point is lifespan. So Srila Prabhupada says regular habits. Now, what does this mean by regular habits? It means, it's actually explained in Ayurveda, and actually even in modern medicine, that it's very important to be regulated, to eat and sleep roughly at the same time each day, and eating simple foods. But there was many years ago, when I was living as a brahmachari, is a great speaker, great leader within ISKCON. He's holding a Shivram Maharaj. He's also a guru within ISKCON. He gave a class, and the entire class was about practicing one word: contentment. Practicing being content with what we have. So it's explained in the Isha Upanishad that every single person, when they come into this world, is born with a set quota. So no matter how hard we try sometimes, I don't know, I've definitely had this experience that sometimes I've tried so hard for certain things in my life and it just didn't seem to happen. But at the same time, certain things, they just seem to happen without me even trying. So the job that I'm in currently, prior to that, I was really struggling to get a new job. And I was making so many applications. In fact, I like to keep those applications in my email just as a reminder of this very point. So I applied to over 200 jobs. I got a few interviews, but I was unsuccessful. And then I thought, okay, maybe the time just isn't right. The time isn't right. So I'll continue to apply. And then actually a certain time came where I just kind of thought, okay, let me just stick with my current job for now and see what happens. This was many years ago now. And then suddenly I got approached by a recruiter, and within a week, I had 2 interviews and got the job. And I didn't even have to try. In fact, it happened so quickly, I didn't really have time to even prepare for the job interview. But I just talked about my experience and was honest. And like this, we can see, I've just experienced it so many times in my own life, and it's backed up by what Krishna says, is that we have our own quota. So there's a nice saying, which is, whatever is meant for you won't ever miss you. So we have our set quota. We only have to endeavor, and then things will come to us. But we shouldn't endeavor for the things that weren't meant for us. So, and especially we shouldn't over endeavor for material success, because that's going to come and go. Happiness and distress is going to come and go whether we want it or not. That's the nature of the material world, as explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Well, practice this contentment. And when we feel ourselves, as we use this word hankering, when we feel ourselves wanting more and more and more, maybe think back to the times when we didn't have so much and think about the things that we do have and think, okay, you know, actually, I'm grateful for what I do have, and maybe I shouldn't over endeavor. And I watched a nice documentary once on the happiness, and he actually said that after people had achieved a basic standard of living, above that, people didn't experience much more happiness. The degrees of happiness weren't so much. And we can see this even in so many people who may even in the UK, we have something called the lottery where people can win, you know, millions of pounds. We have celebrities who earn, you know, earn so much money, or very, very wealthy materially. But all these people, the funny thing is, in the UK, there's actually a track record of lottery winners, millionaires who lose their money very quickly. So that money didn't bring them much happiness. We see within celebrities, they often take to drugs, and there's been many well-documented cases of celebrity suicide. And these are people who have so much wealth, so much opulence compared to most people. Yet these people are incredibly unhappy. So this is one way we can practice the art of contentment and live a more regulated life. The second point is lazy. So how can we stay committed and motivated on the path of our spirituality? Because it gets hard, you know. I'll wholeheartedly admit the path of Krishna consciousness, the path of spirituality, is not an easy path. We have so many duties, and then amongst that we have to chant. We need to chant. We need to constantly work on our character, reflect on our character. We need to live a very regulated life. It's an austerity, you know. It's difficult, but how can we stay motivated on this path? Well, I remember once I moved out of the temple, and I came back, and I was speaking to one of my friends. His name is Venugopal Prabhu, and he said to me, "Oh, how is things, Kamal Prabhu?" And I said, "You know, it's very difficult out there. It's very difficult. You know, you have to work long hours. You have to do so many different things, and then you still have to make the time to practice Krishna consciousness." And he said, "Keep reminding me." He said, "Keep reminding me how difficult it is out there, because sometimes." And we need these reminders to ourselves. And if we don't remind ourselves from the scriptures by discussing with devotees or reflecting on our lives and the difficulties we're facing, then Krishna will send us reminders. And actually, one great devotee, a book I'd really recommend by Srila Prabhupada, is called The Teachings of Queen Kunti. So Queen Kunti, she's the mother of the Pandavas. And actually, Queen Kunti, she prays to Krishna to send more calamity to her. And the reason is she prays for this is because when she receives more trouble, then she really turns to Krishna. So that is the thinking of a very elevated devotee. What I would say is I'm definitely not at that stage where I want to pray for more trouble. But when I look at the difficulties that I face in my life and think, okay, Srila Prabhupada often says, this material world is no place for a gentleman or gentlewoman. So it's no place for a gentleman. So it's a reminder to me to stay focused and stay committed to the path of spirituality and the path of Krishna consciousness. But another tip I'd like to give is find activities within Krishna consciousness that motivate you, that you enjoy. So at this point, I'm going to have a confession for all of you here listening, is that in fact, my motivation for speaking to all of you, although Kirtika Mataji is kindly giving me the service, it's actually selfish reasons, because I get so much inspiration from seeing the dedication of Partha Prem Prabhu, Kirtika Mataji, and all of you for attending this every single day, for organizing this, and for hearing all your sincere questions. It really inspires me and motivates me and gives me a lot of strength in my spiritual life to continue on this path, and just hearing all of you, discussing with all of you. And it also motivates me thinking, if I'm speaking about the Srimad Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Gita, then how can I be talking about it if I'm not practicing myself. So it really gives me motivation to make sure that I wake up and I try and chant some good rounds and do some reading and make sure that I'm actually a living embodiment of what I'm talking about. I remember a nice story by Mahatma Gandhi, who once a woman came with a young son. And at that time, Mahatma Gandhi, everyone wanted to speak to him. So there'd be queues for hours just to have maybe a few minutes with Mahatma Gandhi. So this woman waited for hours and hours to speak to Mahatma Gandhi. And she brought a young child and she said, Gandhiji, please, can you tell my son to stop eating sweets? Stop eating sweets. Because, he's eating so many sweets, it's not good for his health. So Gandhi looked at the mother, he looked at the child, and he just said, He said, please come and see me again in 2 weeks. So the mother was confused and said, okay, I'm not sure what to make of this, but left, came back in 2 weeks. And then she said, look, Gandhiji, I'm here again with my son. Please tell my son to stop eating sweets. So Gandhiji looks at the mother, looks at the son, and then says, stop eating sweets. And so the mother is confused and said, why did you make me wait 2 weeks just for you to say that to my son? So Mahatma Gandhi says, well, 2 weeks ago, I was eating sweets. So how can I tell your son to stop eating sweets? But now, so then I stopped eating sweets. Now I can tell your son to stop eating sweets. So in this way, for very selfish reasons, I've committed to giving these talks mainly for my benefit as a reminder. Everything I say is essentially a reminder to myself, and also motivates me to stay fixed on my path of Krishna consciousness, as I know that I cannot speak anything and it will hold no weight if I'm not also practicing myself. But it's important for each and every one of us to find things which motivate us to stay within Krishna consciousness and stay on this path. Some of us, we may like cooking, so it's important to cook prasadam and cook for the Lord. Some of us, we may love singing, so great, we can play music and sing for the Lord. Some of us, we may like serving in other capacities, but whatever capacity it is, we must find ways to keep ourselves motivated and stay on this path. And this will help us to stop becoming lazy in our spiritual lives. The third point is misguided. So there's so many wrong sources here. As I said, that the Western teachings of the scriptures of the Vedas is very convoluted, and they will often say things like there are many gods in Hinduism, but no, the Vedas clearly say there's one God, one supreme, there's Lord Krishna. There's a nice pastime later in the Bhagavatam of a great sage called Bhigu Rishi, as this is mentioned in the 10th canto. And Bhigu Rishi is discussing with the sages who is the supreme. And so he's asked by the sages to find out. So he sets out on a journey, and Bhigu Rishi, he's a very, very elevated sage, and he's actually son of Lord Brahma and brother of Lord Shiva. And as I said, that often in the Western kind of misguided application of the Vedas, it's often said that there's a Trimurti and that Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu are equal, which, as we know from our study of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, that the Supreme Lord is Krishna, Vishnu. So Bhigu Rishi, he sets out to find out for himself. So first he goes to his father, Lord Brahma, and Srila Prabhupada actually says this, and it's the sages have discussed that the way you can find out who is the supreme, and Srila Prabhupada mentions this, is one's greatness is measured by one's ability to deal with, tolerate provoking situations. So Bhigu Rishi approaches Brahma as his father and offers him no respect, at which point Brahma becomes very, very angry and has to be pacified. So Bhigu Rishi then leaves his abode. He then goes to see Lord Shiva, his brother. And Lord Shiva, upon seeing Bhigu Rishi, comes to embrace him. And Bhigu Rishi instead insults him and says, I'm not going to embrace you. Look at your association. So Lord Shiva becomes enraged and grabs his trident and is only pacified by Mother Parvati. And finally, he goes to the abode of Lord Narayan. And Lord Narayan, as he often is resting on the lap of his consort, Lakshmi Devi. So Bigger Rishi, he kicks Lord Narayan on the chest, Vishnu on the chest. But instead of becoming angry, Lord Narayan greets him and says, I'm so sorry, a great sage like you weren't greeted properly. Please let us welcome you in the appropriate manner. And immediately, Bigger Rishi knows that Lord Narayan, Vishnu, Krishna is the supreme. So like this, he confirms for himself that there is only one true supreme. Though interestingly, just a side note, is that Bigger Rishi is often said to be the father of the Brahmanas. And there's one person though who didn't quite forgive Bigger Rishi for his great offense, which was a great offense, a very, very great offense to the Lord. And that was Lakshmi Devi. So it is said that actually all true Brahmanas will never have wealth because they were cursed at that point by Lakshmi Devi. So like this. So here we can see that we can be very misguided. And I know myself on my journey, I approached many people on my spiritual journey, approached many temples. And until I came to ISKCON, I didn't get the right answers. People were often quick to not answer my question. So it's so important to ask questions, as we said, in a submissive way, but still to find out the truth and remove all doubts from our minds. I'm going to jump to the final point before the fifth point was disturbed. So we're often disturbed in Kali Yuga, because we said that like now over 300 million people suffer from depression, and that's clinical depression. There may be many more of us who suffer from mild types of depression and anxiety. And what can we do about our disturbed minds? So I just want to make a caveat that anyone who's suffering from severe mental health should most definitely seek professional help. And we're not saying that, you know, just by practicing Krishna consciousness, one can overcome severe problems. Just like if we have a broken arm or a broken leg, we don't just chant Hare Krishna, we make sure we see a doctor. In the same way that if we're really struggling mentally, whether it's with anxiety or depression, then we need to seek the appropriate mental health support. That being said, if we will always face some degree of anxiety, that's the nature of Kali Yuga. So it's important that we, as we've discussed in previous sessions, to reveal our mind in confidence to someone who's senior, someone who can guide us. And it's also important to consistently listen and read the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita, and this will give a sense of perspective and help us see the reality. I'd like to share one more story, and then we can open up for some questions and discussion. So once there was a parrot, and he was in a cage of a person, a pilgrim. So he used to talk. The parrot would talk with the pilgrim who would keep this parrot in the cage. And this pilgrim, he would go to a sage every single day for satsang. So every single day he would go to this sage's house and hear from him. And this happened for a very, very long time. So the parrot came to know of the pilgrim going to see the sage for satsang. And the parrot actually he said to the pilgrim, "Oh, so you speak to the sage every day and you hear from him, you hear a discourse every day on the scriptures. So could you ask the sage, how can I get my freedom?" And so the pilgrim says, "Yes, sure, I'll ask the sage." So then the pilgrim goes to see the sage and asks the sage, my bird actually asked, he said, "How can I get my freedom?" At which point the sage, who was sat down, suddenly falls unconscious, and the pilgrim becomes disturbed and quickly leaves. So the parrot then asks him, "Oh, so what did the sage say?" And the pilgrim tells the parrot what happened. So at which point the parrot immediately understands, and the parrot falls as if it's dead. So the pilgrim is shocked. So he opens the cage of the parrot, and immediately as the cage door is open, the parrot flies free. So the next day, the pilgrim goes to the sage and tells the sage what has happened. And so the sage says, yes, the parrot got my hint. And the sage actually says to the pilgrim, and the parrot is more intelligent than you, because the parrot, at least it heard only my advice once, or heeded my advice once, and was able to apply it and achieve its freedom. Yet you've been hearing satsang for so long, yet you're not applying the principles to achieve your freedom of material bondage. So why do I make this point? And this is such a big lesson for myself and a reminder for myself, really, is that we can hear many classes, as many speakers I like, but do we take, when we're hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, when we're hearing the scriptures, the revealed scriptures, and when we're reading, are we taking it as some form of entertainment? And I know many times I'll maybe deviate towards certain speakers because I like the way they speak, or they may make, be very entertaining and things like this. But are we reflecting on what is being said in these classes? Are we reflecting of what have been said in the scriptures? Are we looking to try to see how this applies to our own lives? So it's actually a 3-stage process. It's Shravanam first is here, then Mananam, which is reflect and contemplate. So maybe we can write something about what we've heard. We can spend some time just thinking about, okay, what did that really mean in what I've read or what I've heard? And then the final point is, actually there's 2 more points, which is Idyasasan, which is apply this teachings to our lives. And throughout each and every stage, whether it's Shravanam, Mananam, or Nidhyasasam, is Vandanam, prayer. So without the mercy of the Lord, we won't, as we've discussed in Kali Yuga, we have a short lifespan, we're lazy, we're misguided, we're disturbed. We don't have much luck in Kali Yuga. So we need the mercy of the Lord. So by continually praying, as we've found we've discussed in Bhagavad Gita, the intelligence actually comes from Krishna. So Krishna, through our prayers, can give us the intelligence to understand these scriptures, which are very complicated and very vast, And then so we come to the final point is that we're unfortunate. We're unfortunate because many calamities happen in Kali Yuga, but as I discussed in another session, we discussed that in Satyuga, in one of the previous yugas, the means to liberation was thousands of years of meditation. So although Satyuga, the people had much better qualities, they'd have to do thousands of years of silent meditation, meditating on the Lord. And that was the way to achieve liberation. In Treta Yuga, the next yuga, people would have to do huge sacrifices. So you may have seen some yagnas here, some elaborate yagnas, but that was nothing compared to the yagnas that they had to perform. And in fact, if you read Mahabharata, some of the yagnas they perform, a Yudhishthira Maharaj, for example, the Ashwamedha sacrifice, they would have huge halls and so much opulence, offering everything to the Lord, to Krishna. And this was the means of achieving liberation, the recommended way. In Dwapara Yuga, they had elaborate deity worship. So I know here in ISKCON, they do some amazing deity worship here, but in Dwapara Yuga, it had to be so elaborate. And this was the way in which they could connect to the Lord and go back home, go back to Godhead. So in Kali Yuga, because we're facing so many problems, because we are so fallen, and because it's so difficult in Kali Yuga, the Lord being ever so merciful and kind to his devotees, he's given us the main easy way to go back home, back to Godhead. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nameva Kevalam. Kalo Nastieva, 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 Gatiranyatha. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of liberation is the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. There is no other way. There is no other way. There is no other way. So in this way, we could say we're unfortunate in Kali Yuga, but also very fortunate that we have this easy way. So as a reminder to myself, I'd please keep whatever happens, try to whatever your capacity, chant the holy names of the Lord, listen about the Lord and his devotees, and try to apply these teachings to your life, and then we can overcome these defects that we've talked about that we all possess in Kali Yuga. So see, we've got a few minutes left. I thought perhaps we could open up for any comments, corrections, or questions. And thank you all once again for your association, and thank you so much for listening. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much for motivating us. And I started this class only for my own selfish reason, because I wanted to read the scriptures, which were lying in my library since 25 years. So what a fantastic forum. You, both the speaker and the listener, can be selfish. And it's a win-win situation. So I'm really, really grateful, Prabhuji. Let's open up this for comments and questions. Any comments or questions? Kindly unmute and ask your questions, please.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna, Pramila Mataji.
Prabhuji, we were told by another speaker as well, another Prabhu, that the only way is by chanting Harinam. But we were also told by another Prabhu in one of these sessions that whoever reads the Bhagavatam will definitely go to the spiritual world.
Very, very good question. So, contradiction, right? If you read the Bhagavatam, one speaker is saying, and I've just told you as well, the only means of liberation is the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. But yeah, another Prabhuji is saying, if you read the Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll go back to Godhead. So how this is a contradiction there. So Mataji, it is true that one who reads the Srimad Bhagavatam will go back to Godhead, but this is because the reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam will you get so much purity from reading the Srimad Bhagavatam that it will help us. The Lord will give us his mercy and bring us to the point of chanting purely, at which point we'll go back to Godhead. So if someone, for example, just to give an example, say if someone reads Srimad Bhagavatam in this life, but they never really take to chanting, because they've received that what's known as Sukriti from reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Lord, through his mercy, will give them opportunity, if they're born again in Kali Yuga, to chant the names of the Lord. And through that opportunity from reading Srimad Bhagavatam, this is my limited understanding, if anyone else would like to comment, but it will give us an opportunity. And this is what is actually mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam as well, is Harinam Sankirtan, and the importance of chanting the holy names of the Lord. And as I've discussed in previous sessions, that by everything that we do in relation, so we don't only just chant, we still worship the deities. We may do puja at home for our deities. We discuss, we have satsang, we read the scriptures, but in Kali Yuga, everything that we do in Krishna consciousness is aimed to help us chant better. Does that make sense, Pramila Mataji?
Yes, Prabhu, very much so. And I also found that the association is very motivating. Whenever I feel I'm falling back in my chanting or so, there's a Prabhu who comes along and just reminds us, in one of the discourses. So that really keeps me motivated. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mataji, for your question. Richa Mataji, did you have a question?
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances, all the devotees. It was a really amazing class. I really liked it. So I had a question that when we were talking about the qualities of people in the Kali Yuga, and I could understand that the basic reason why everyone does something is because they become illusioned that, okay, this is happiness. Okay, this will give me pleasure. This will give me happiness. So when we want instant happiness, we turn to material life.
Mm,
But now, when we come to spiritual life
mm,
and material life are opposite, like a tree in the water, right?
yeah,
So
that's right.
I sometimes fail to understand that material life is so difficult. Like, it's like
Mm,
it goes up quickly, it goes
mm,
down quickly. You don't
mm,
know where you will be the next moment.
mm,
But at the same time, if it is a reflection of like completely like spiritual world, there is no anxiety, there
mm,
is no fear, but still both of them are equally tough, like
mm,
extremely tough.
mm,
So to be in both the sides and to understand the concept that material life is a perverted reflection of spiritual life is
mm.
very hard, because even sometimes in spiritual life now you feel that okay, yes, you are not lazy anymore, you are active, but then the next second you're like, oh no man, I don't want to do anything today, let me just lay in bed, let me
Yeah,
chill today.
yeah.
So there is that turbulence and also the lack of understanding of how material world is a perverted reflection, because both of them are extremely tough, and both of them can go either extremely enthusiastic or you're completely nowhere. So
Mm.
I would like you to please clear my this confusion.
Yes, like a very nice question, Mataji. Thank you so much for your question, Richa Mataji. So, just so I can understand, is that you're basically asking that spiritual life, spiritual practice, or material life, both are still very, very difficult, and also that if the material world, if the spiritual world is a reflection of or the material world, sorry, is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world, how does that work? So I think first of all, if I can answer the material world as a perverted reflection of the spiritual world, is that I'd like to give the example of, so the key word is perverted. So just an example is love. So love perverted is lust. So here we can see that in the material world, often relationships, whatever relationship that may be, is often, as we've discussed as well, and I'll hardly admit, it's our first reaction in the material conditioning is, what's in it for me? That's our attraction to often things, not how can I serve? Yeah, in the spiritual world, the mood, and this is how we're trying to cultivate. We call each other Prabhu, because Prabhu means master, and I'm here to serve you. And we're trying to cultivate this mood of, in a spiritual sense, sorry, in a material sense, servant, you would think is a very lowly position. But in a spiritual sense, servant is the highest position. You're very low, but the lower you are, the closer you are to Krishna, because you have humility. So the key is perverted. That's how it's different. So it may seem sometimes similar, but it's actually a perverted version. So it's almost like we're retraining ourselves. And this arena we're associating with devotees, it's almost like practice for being in the spiritual world. We're practicing by cultivating, by almost switching our mindset to be respectful, to take the position of a servant, to respect everyone rather than think we're higher than everyone, to not look at the opposite sexes as objects of our attraction, but instead look at them with the utmost respect. We call females Mataji, because the female who a man respects the most is his mother. So we want to see every single female as the mother, apart from one's own wife. So like this, that's perverted. And then spiritual life it is hard. It's very difficult, but the idea is that we gradually give up these lower tastes. And it's said, so we discussed the modes in the Bhagavad Gita. So we discussed that Tamagun is poison in the beginning, poison in the end. It's just a waste of time. But Rajagun is nectar in the beginning. So in material things, sometimes we'll get something and it'll be great. I remember when I was 29 years old, so a good few years ago now, and I thought, okay, let me treat myself, and I got myself like a nice car. I was so happy with this car. You know, I was very, and it was my birthday, and my friends came around and were like, "Oh, Kamal, what a nice car!" Everything. Within 6 months, I was thinking about getting a next one, and instead, actually, you know, to maintain or always keep up this habit of getting a new car and everything, you have to endeavor so much, too much. So now actually I came to the conclusion, now I've just kept that same car, and until it breaks down, I'll just keep it as long as it gets me from A to B, you know. But like this, it's very quick, but then poison in the end, because you have to, you know, if you want to continually change cars, you're gonna have to work extremely hard. And we see many people like this. I know many people like this. But sattva, so Srila Prabhupada says that pure sattva is transcendental. You will get some sattva gun, which is contaminated with the modes of rajas and tamas, and that's like material sattva gun. But pure sattva gun is transcendental, and that's purely connection with the Lord. And sattva gun, goodness, is actually poison in the beginning, but nectar in the end. So we may find very many difficulties in our spiritual life, very many difficulties, but ultimately, and it'll be difficult, it'll be hard going at times, but ultimately it will give us the ultimate ultimate satisfaction, ultimate happiness. And it's gradual, though, Mataji. It's not something generally that happens. So we will have ups and downs, but the idea is we'll gradually lose the tastes for the things that we used to like as we gain what's known as a higher taste for the association of devotees, the hearing of the scriptures. And as we more and more engage in these higher tastes, the lower taste will be will not be as appealing to us, you know. So I don't know if that helps at all, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. It really cleared my doubt, which I always, and at some point it gets really confusing because at some point you start seeing everything same. Like material life is same, spiritual life is same. You go to spiritual life, you're still facing difficulties.
Yeah.
So now you're just like, okay, there is difficulties everywhere. It means everything is on the same platform.
No.
I just wanted to ask permission from Mataji if I can ask one last question, and also from you, Prabhu, if I can ask.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Mataji, yes.
So I don't really know actually much about Shastras and spiritual life. So I do not understand that why were these yugas were created, like Sat Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Treta Yuga, Kali Yuga. Like what like of course Krishna is the creator of everything, so why did he decide? He must have given, of course, answers in some literature somewhere. So I'm just curious to know that how do we slowly come from a decline from Satyuga to Dwapar, Treta, then Kali, and they're like numbers, like Satyuga means 1, Dwapar is 2, Treta is 3. So what is the relation? Is there any description given in any of the literatures about these yugas?
About why he created this particular system. That's a very good question, and one that I cannot answer at the moment, Mataji. I can't think off the top of my head. It's a very good question as to why the different yugas exist, or why isn't it just one yuga? You know, so yeah, I will consult. I'll do my research, and I will consult with. I'm actually got a meeting later today, so I'll consult with my seniors as well. But thank you for that very deep question, Mataji. It shows that actually, you know, I think you must have been. I know you say that you don't know so much, but that's such a deep, profound question, Mataji, that I think that perhaps you have been practicing for a long time. And you're just this life, you will only take a little bit, and then you're finishing off your practice. So yeah, thank you for that very deep question, and I promise you I'll endeavor to get a thorough answer for you.
Thank you very much. I will wait for the response.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Danvat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Maji,
Hare
I don't have so much time left. Perhaps, okay, so maybe one more question from Peter Prabhuji, if that's okay, please forgive me.
No, it's okay. I was just wanting to maybe chip in on something
Yes, please,
about
Prabhuji.
why we don't have one yuga. Maybe because earlier you mentioned time is not linear; it's cyclic. So immediately you say cyclic, it has to go and then come back again. And if you look at also the yugas, like the Satya is really long. They have, like, if you divide them, they have certain divisions to them. So maybe they're supposed to just go deteriorating, then start again. And maybe that makes the point of cyclic. I don't know if it makes kind of sense.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Like, and perhaps also this is just, there'll be many questions even I've asked in my life that why, there's a really amazing guru in ISKCON, His Holiness Satchidananda Maharaj. And I remember once he was giving a class, and he's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And he explained how he asked Srila Prabhupada, why did Krishna create Maya? Why? And so Prabhupada, he looked very upset, and he said to His Holiness Satchidananda Maharaj, you created Maya because you wanted it. That's why. So I think perhaps within this answer, it's there that ultimately this system, this material world, everything was created because we ultimately, though we may not remember, we wanted to enjoy without Krishna. So Krishna says, okay, this is a system, this is a world in which you can enjoy without me. And by trying to enjoy without Krishna, we can see there is no real enjoyment. And slowly we'll come to realize, as we elevate our consciousness, that the only enjoyment we can really have, real true happiness, is with Krishna. So that's just some thinking based on Peter Prabhuji's comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I'm mindful of the time. So thank you very much. I'll hand over to Path Prabhuji, who will close the session. Prabhuji, Path Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Okay, Hare Krishna. Maybe there are some internet challenges. I'd like to thank Prabhuji for this excellent, wonderful class. And we have many, many more questions. Maybe we can look at them next time. Prabhuji, thank you very much for joining in today. Let us all unmute and chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra in glorification of Prabhuji. Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Panchakalpa, Kripa Sindhu Titanam Pavane Vyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Sri Kamal
Kantaraj,
Panchal Prabhuji ki
Ah,
Jai.
Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.